morning, beloved ones. Turn to somebody and tell them, I remember you. I remember you. Yes. I remember you. Even if they're a stranger, you can say, I remember you. I remember you. Yes, I remember you. Tomorrow, friends, is Memorial Day, and people will begin to fire up the grill and get together with family and friends and celebrate, which is wonderful to do. But I was wondering, when did the holiday switch from being a holiday to honor those who had died or transitioned or given their lives in service to this country, to now being sort of the unofficial start of summer? That's what people say. Memorial Day is the unofficial start of summer, and it's a signal that it's time to either party or to get ready for some sun and some fun, which again, it's lovely. I love summer. I love to enjoy the warmth weather, get out and play golf. But I'm thinking that today, however, is supposed to be, tomorrow as we celebrate it, supposed to be a time of remembrance. A time, and a very important one, because I do think that the sentiment of remembering those who died in service, to remembering, and not just maybe in service, but in fact just to remember those who have gone on before us, who've transitioned, that's a good and a healthy thing to do. I remember when I was younger, people used to go, and maybe we don't have to do this particular thing to that extent, but people used to go and they would go to the cemeteries. And the cemeteries were filled on Memorial Day. And even if you don't want to do that, but there's something to be said for taking the time to remember. Because I think remembering loved ones is what kind of keeps us connected, it keeps us grounded, and it helps the heart to remain open and to be primed for love. It just keeps us in that space. It adds a depth to our being, that we're not so shallow that we forget. It causes us to remind ourselves to savor the moment and to savor the fullness of life, to savor those who are with us now, and to appreciate and honor those who have gone on and left. Memories are very valuable. Saul Bellows said, everybody needs his or her memories. They keep the wolf of insignificance from the door. Isn't that powerful? Everyone needs his or her memories because they keep the wolf of insignificance from the door. Everybody questions from time to time their own significance. Have you ever questioned your significance? Does my life matter? Have you ever asked, does your life matter? We've done that, right? Does my life matter? Or have I really made an impact at all on others? Will anybody remember me? Everybody wants to be remembered. And not necessarily because of some great, big achievement, but we do want to know that somehow our being, our existence mattered to something or someone. That's sort of important to us. Probably the most devastating thing about Alzheimer's as a disease or a condition is that people forget their own lives. That's really devastating, to forget one's own life. Memories help us to remember the significance of our lives. And your life may not matter to a whole bunch of people, but it ought to matter to you, right? And so we cherish our memories. And I say this, if you should ever find yourself in the company of someone who has forgotten their own lives, then you remember them. You remember them. Because their lives matter. There's a story, there are two stories I want to tell. One is of this little girl who would walk on the beach, and each morning, and she would pick up all the starfish that she had seen on the beach who had somehow beached themselves or whatever, and she would be throwing them all back into the ocean. And so, this man came and said, well, why are you doing that? Because they're just going to keep coming up the next morning or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And she picked one up and she threw it into the ocean. She said, but it mattered to that one, right? It matters to the ones that I'm doing. We can't maybe save everyone, but it matters. What I do may matter to one individual. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. My favorite song, as some of you know, is, that my living will not have been in vain. I don't have to be noted as some great big, preacher. I just want to know, did I affect one person? And if I did, then my living was not in vain. And so that's important for us. And then there's a story about an older gentleman who would go to the nursing home to visit his wife, and his wife had Alzheimer's, and he would visit her every day. And he would sit and he would interact and he would talk with her. And finally, someone asked him, well, why do you come every day to sit with her when she doesn't even remember who you are? And he just simply said, but I remember her. I remember her. She doesn't have to remember me. I remember her. I think that's so powerful. Memories keep the wolf of insignificance from the door. Least we forget. Memory, having a memory can also be sort of elusive, because oftentimes we only remember what we choose to remember, right? Sometimes we just remember what we choose to remember. We don't have Alzheimer's or any other kind of conditioning. We have what's known as selective memory, right? You've done it where you only choose to remember this, you're not going to remember that. And so sometimes, the selective memory can be helpful. Some, believe it or not, some people choose to remember or to select not only the good, but they may even choose to remember the bad and the ugly. You got the good, the bad, the ugly. They want to choose to remember the bad and the ugly. In fact, probably we get stuck sometimes in remembrance or stuck in the bad and the ugly. And we begin to play that loop over and over and over again. And that's when memory can be a challenge. That's when we can stagnate beneath the weight of the past, wanting things to be exactly like it was before and not being able to embrace, the new. I knew when we moved into this facility that something as simple as a physical change would also alter and change some level of how we were showing up and manifesting as a church. So, sometimes you've got to balance what to keep, but what must you also allow to grow and to unfold and to change while holding on to the memory without getting stuck in that past. Memories can be very, very powerful. So I think it's when we recognize to embrace the present moment fully, because present moment awareness is what makes up a past memory. Present moment awareness makes up the past. That's what's going to become the past. So if that's true, then we ought to be willing to live in the present moment well, to embrace it in its fullness well, because it is going to become our past. And sometimes, when we go and look back, we will at least have the fullness of understanding what really took place, or our understanding of what we think took place. So we want to be able to bring our present moment's awareness to all of our perceptions and our actions, so that we don't do things absent-mindedly, but we're present there. We can remember what we're doing in the moment. If you're brushing your teeth, are you bringing your full awareness into that present moment so that it really serves you well? How do you, or what do you, remember about your life? I'm looking out here, and most of us are still at the point where we can remember some things. We have those moments when you go up and down 3 times because you just can't remember what you're looking for. That's all good. I just say, well, I needed the exercise. Sometimes I may just need to stand in the middle of the room for a minute. But what do you remember about your life? When you look back, do you see it as a difficult challenge? Or are you able to really see the hand of God in your life? Sometimes we don't remember how we got there, but when you stop and look, you can see that the hand of God was in your life that brought you to a particular point in time. So how do you see or remember your life? I'm thinking, we should see all of it. Do you only see the success only? Or are you able to see those areas that you still need to grow? Or those areas or that condition or that circumstance that came to teach you something? Are you able to see that as well? You should do a life review. It's a process. I'm going to talk about it maybe in a future talk, but a life review is a very powerful experience to do. Usually, you don't have to wait until you feel that you're at the end of your days, on your deathbed to do a life review. You can do one now, and doing one will bring more life to your life. It'll help you to remember, where you are in this journey and process and where you've come from and where you want to go. Looking at it all, doing a review of it. What is your present day awareness? What's happening right now in your present day life? Are you God-oriented? You look in your life, meaning can you look at your life and check in to see how your relationship or lack thereof with the divine is, so that you can notice when God is operating and moving and directing your life? Are you God-oriented? Can you see how your relationships are unfolding and connecting? Do you remember the truth, especially when things get muddy and trying and challenging and difficult for you? Do you remember the truth in those moments? Do you remember who you are as a spiritual being? Sometimes, I'll run into people who I haven't seen in a while, and I just love it because people get so nervous when they see me and they say, I'm coming back to church. It's like, I am not the church police. You're on your journey. You don't have to feel guilty. I'm not sitting there judging you. But I always find it interesting that sometimes they'll say to me, I was just going through so much. I had some challenges in my life, and I'm saying to myself, but that's the time you need to be in church. That's the time you need to, remember your truth. So I'm thinking, well, what happens to you? When do you remember it? When you're sitting here only? Or can you take the truth that you know and try to remember it as you're in your life experiences? See, it's so easy to forget. We forget who we really are. We forget what we're really capable of. We forget God, and we forget spiritual principles when we need them the most. It seems like we forget them. So I'm thinking, what can we do? How do we remember? See, to remember spiritually is a different activity. It's not just a mental thing, but to remember spiritually is to come back around that part. When you remember, when you are remembering, you're coming back around. The is like you're reminding, you're repeating, you're remembering. So to remember is to come back around to that part of you that is whole and complete. That part of you, the member part. See, come back around. To remember is to come back to that member part of you. To remember is what joins you as a member of God, as a part of God. So to remember, really, spiritually speaking, that is to become a part of God again in consciousness. Because when we forget is when we have separated ourselves in consciousness. We've said, I'm in my situation, God is over there, or the good is there, but I'm here. So when we remember, we're bringing ourselves back into the awareness and consciousness of God, becoming a part of the membership of God. This is why Jesus said that he was going to leave us a comforter. right? And the comforter that he would leave us a comforter, and this comforter would bring to our remembrance all the things that he taught, all the things that he said, all the things that he demonstrated, because he knew that once he was gone, we would be forgetting in a heartbeat, right? So this Holy Spirit, the part of the job of the Holy Spirit is to remember you. That is, to bring you back into the awareness, into the consciousness, into the presence of God. To bring all of those parts of you that feel like they are broken, and all parts of you that are splintered off, all the parts of you that need to be healed, that are hurting. The Holy Spirit is to remember you, to take all those broken pieces, all those broken parts, and bring them back into the membership of God, into the body, so that you are now remembering who you are, who God is, so that healing and transformation can take place. That's a powerful thing. Brings you back to the truth. Because we've heard the scripture, we know the scripture says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall what? Set you free. It'll heal you. Even though now sometimes, and I think sometimes when people are going through a lot of challenges, sometimes, oddly enough, they don't want to hear the truth, because it feels good to them to wallow in the situation. Sometimes pain is familiar. Sometimes the suffering allows them to feel that they're doing something. And you ever had that? Now, we shouldn't be where kinds of friends where we go and we throw the truth at people when they're in a moment and they are hurting. I've had that experience too. And in that moment, I need you not to remind me of the truth, but to feel what I'm feeling in terms of honoring me. But then eventually, you do need to help me get back to the truth. It's a delicate balance, right? So we're there for each other, not to hammer each other over the head. Well, girl, you know the truth. You know, yes, but I'm having a moment. So it's about, as a friend, as a true student, as whatever, a partner, whatever, we allow people to have the moment, but again, we have to help them to remember, to get themselves back to the truth that will heal them and set them free. It's a balance. If your memories are solely focused on the untruth or on the pain or on the limitation or the harshness that you experienced, then you really aren't remembering the whole truth. Because the whole truth is holy. The whole truth will heal you. If you're only focused on that untruth, then you aren't seeing the value in the lesson. You aren't seeing the blessing. You aren't seeing the goodness of God and his ability to still move you in your present state and in your present circumstance, to move you to where you need to be, to move you to the place that is for your highest good, which eventually will come. So your memories are colored by your consciousness. Right? Because everybody remembers the same situation differently. Even if you were in the same household growing up. My brother and I laugh about that because we just see things so differently. I'm like, where did you grow up? That's not how our life was. And he sees it one way, I see it another. He remembers his childhood from a totally different fashion. But it's colored by your consciousness and not necessarily by the way things really were, but how you see them, right? How you see them. So part of the work that we're about is to just check out our consciousness. If you want to check out your consciousness, check out your memories, and you can see where your consciousness is. So ask yourself, what are you choosing to remember? The good, the bad, the ugly, or all of the above? We've got to look at some things in our lives. How do we work with those memories that we can learn from? If you haven't learned from a situation, chances are you're going to do what? You're going to repeat it. You're going to repeat it. George Bernard Shaw said this. He said, if history repeats itself and the unexpected always happens, how incapable must man be of learning from experience? See, sometimes the memory needs to be kept so that we can remember what it is that got us in this situation in the first place. Maybe if we had remembered World War I, we might not have had World War II. And maybe if we remember World War I and II, we might not ever get to World War III. But I'm not sure because, see, we keep forgetting. We forget the horrors of war, and we forget what our sense of separation brings, and we forget all of these things. So sometimes we have to remember. And one of the things I think that we can do is that if you can remember, you don't have to remember the gory details of your experience, but if you can remember the lesson, if the lesson is not lost, it'll serve you well. But if the lesson from that experience is lost, then you're going to repeat that experience over and over and over again. It's the lesson that counts. And the beauty is if you can remember the lesson, it will actually take the sting out of that experience if the experience was negative. See, but if you go on the gory details, well, you know what, this is what he did, and he did so and so, blah, 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 that's not going to help. What was the lesson you got from that experience of what he or she did? What was it that took place in you? It's the lesson that counts. So you should ask yourself when you're having a memory and going back and digging up something, you can ask yourself, well, what's the lesson here? So that you don't get caught up in just repeating or reminding yourself of the pain or the experience. What is or was the lesson here? If you can focus on the lesson, it will serve you well. Even if it's negative, it'll serve you well because it adds value to your experience. It adds value to your life. It's how you turn a negative into a positive, by looking at the experience from the lesson. So we ask, what's the present moment awareness that we're bringing to our lives and to this situation? Some of the things that I think that we can do to really help us to remember ourselves, that is to bring out all of ourselves together, our broken selves or whatever, to bring everything together, to remember ourselves and to bring ourselves back into the consciousness of truth. There's some things we can do. There are many, many things, but these are the ones that came to me this morning. If we could remember to spend some time daily with God. You know, I think, and preferably, I think in the morning when you first begin your day, because it sets the tone for your day. It creates the vibration that you're putting out that you want to experience back. But remember to spend some time daily with God. Remember to tell someone that you love them or that you appreciate them. To remember to do that every day, daily, at least once a day. To tell somebody that you appreciate them, because it'll not only lift their hearts and their spirits, but it will lift your own heart. It will open your own spirit. It'll probably do more for you than it will do for the other person. Just to say, you know, I appreciate you. Whatever. It could be somebody who bagged your groceries. You know, thank you. I really appreciate your support in helping me with this. Whatever. Just get in the habit to learn to remember to tell somebody that you love them. Tell somebody that you appreciate them. Remember to also honor your physical being. Just remember that, you know, your body. Eat well, sleep well, rest well, exercise well. All of these things to honor the body, because that's a big thing, because this will ensure that you remain here in wholeness until it's your time to leave. So remember the body. Remember to laugh at least once a day. I love to laugh. But it's so healing for us to do so. You know, so we know one of the 12 symptoms of awakening is smiling, but it also can be laughing. Remember to laugh at least once a day. It will keep your spirit fresh. Even if something tragic has happened, you can still find something to feel that sense of joy and to laugh about. It keeps us fresh. It lightens the consciousness. It lightens our burdens. It lightens the heart. It lightens your spirit. Find something to laugh about. And remember to learn at least one new thing a day. Doesn't have to be big. You don't have to go back to college or anything of that nature. but learn something new. I learned a new route this morning. I don't know if I can repeat it because I was just trying to find an open street, but I learned learn something new. It could be a new perspective you have, a new insight, but something new. I learned, I had a new alarm system put in my house yesterday, and they were also putting in a new digital thermostat. Now, I had one of those old, because I'm a big believer on and off, up and down. I can handle those as clear. Heat, cold. I just move the button, it's heat. I move the button over here, it's cold. I move the arrow here to up for hot and down for cold. I got it. But when you get these new digital thermostats, you got to program it, and the guy convinced me to get it because it's going to do a whole thing where I can from at home, from here or from my car, from anywhere, I can change the temperature in my house before I get there, so it'll save me money. I can lower it when I leave, and then an hour before I get home through my computer, my phone, I can do all this stuff. So he convinced me to change all this. But then when he was showing me, I was like, oh, I told you, I knew it was going to be difficult. I can't follow the program. And so I had to laugh at myself because I instantly went into, my mind instantly shut down. I can't do this. I can't learn how to do all this. Program it here and go over here and up and down and hit this 3 times. And if you keep pressing it over here, hold it down. And I was like, oh, I just want heat and cold, And that's all. But I said, calm down. You can learn this. So he showed me everything. I thought I had it all together. Then that was the temperature, but then the alarm system, I have a motion sensor in there. We had everything working. So when he left, I said, well, let me see, I'm going to try this. So I armed it and I did something, and all of a sudden, blah, the siren went off. I said, oh my gosh. It's not doing what he said. I knew this was going to happen, and I'm, trying to turn it off, and I couldn't remember, so I finally got my code in and turned it off, and I called him back. It's about 2 minutes after. He says, well, I said, look, something didn't go right. I did what you said, and he says, well, did you arm it this way? And so I said, yes. He said, well, do it again. He's on the phone now, so I did it again, and it's a talking one, too. It says if there's a door, like front door open or whatever. So it said, system is armed to stay. And I said, okay, it's armed to stay. And then 2 minutes later, blah, the home, and he goes, okay. So he could hear that something was wrong. So he said, I'm coming, I'm just about 2 minutes away. He came back and he did something and he got it done. I said, well, look, you ain't leaving until I do this thing again. Because I don't want to have to, go through this. But I learned something new. And I had to tell myself that I could learn something digital. I don't have to, because I started thinking this is what makes people old. When old people get old, they refuse to go along with the time. And I used to remember saying that, when I was younger to my mother, well, keep learning this because, and I could see, and I'm at that place. I allow these new, digital things to kind of just freak me out. I can learn it. But I must tell myself, right? I can understand, I can remember that I have a capable mind that can. It may take me a little while to understand the language, and they were saying, well, it goes over here and this and that. I got the phone, it's in the cloud, it's up in here, it's over there. It all seems very just otherworldly. But once I just remember, okay, my material is in the cloud. I don't have to know where the cloud is. I don't have to see where it is. I just have to know it's up in the cloud. And if I need it, I can get it if they show me how to go get it. So it's all about keeping yourself fresh to remember to learn. Remember these things. Remember to express gratitude daily. To find something to be thankful and grateful about every single day. Grateful, thankfulness, appreciation, gratitude is, again, to remember those things every day will keep your spirit and heart alive and fresh. It'll keep you open and receptive to life. You will remember God's grace and God's goodness and God's blessings. It's all about that. So tomorrow, before you get your party on, I want you to remember three things. I want you to take the time to remember somebody who was passed on. Remember them. It doesn't have to be filled with sadness or grief, but you can remember them in joy. But remember someone who has passed on and send them a blessing. We can do that. Send them a blessing. And two, I want you to remember someone who is here. A friend, a colleague, somebody. Reach out to somebody who is here and send them a blessing. And then third, I want you to remember God tomorrow as the source of all of your blessings, the source of all of your life and your goodness, and offer thanksgiving, offer gratitude. If you do those three things, you'll have a blessed, wonderful, not only holiday, but you'll begin to have a blessed, wonderful life. So as the Apostle Paul would often write at the close of his letters to the churches, I thank my God for remembrance of you. Have a safe and wonderful, blessed Memorial Day. Namaste. Namaste. Blessings.